And so suddenly on July the 4th, my wife looked at me and said, "Why would you put our family through this?" I told her, "Because I'm worried for the country." And she said, "That's a good enough reason." So I'm here tonight asking for your votes, your prayers, and your support. It is, thank you. You know, we're in an unprecedented time in our country. We're acting with confusion. We seem to have no roots. Our young seem to be living lives without purpose. We don't seem to be, as parents, fit fathers and fit mothers. When we look at the society as a whole, we see an entire breakdown of who we are. And I will guarantee you that we're either going to decide who we are right now, today, and we're going to begin to stand up for what's right, or this country is going to slip into an abyss that we have no end to. We have obligated future generations to things they can never pay. We're writing hot checks to fund the government. We're writing hot checks to fund the stimulus programs. We're saying that we're creating jobs, and I will guarantee you those jobs that were created were fictitious and they're lies. I've run across the school districts here in the 2nd District who said, "We took stimulus money and we were told that we had to, if we brought a teacher in after work, had to declare that as a job saved. And if we brought them in for more than that, we had to declare it as a job created." I'm telling you, those numbers were fictitious. We are not creating jobs. The jobs created this month were out for the census, and we're struggling. Everyone is worried about the future of their business, their own future, the future of their savings, their retirements. We must stand and fight. As individuals, people always want to know, can we turn that bill around? And I tell them, absolutely we can turn it around, but we cannot turn it around starting in Washington. It has to start turning around on the main streets of New Mexico and the main streets of all of America. You saw it happen right in front of your very eyes. Akron, does that ring a bell? Nancy Pelosi made a declaration, and your speaker doesn't make a declaration, she can't back up. Nancy Pelosi made a declaration that bill did not need to come for any vote, that they did not need to vote on anything about Akron, and within 24 hours, one day, this nation had pushed her membership in the House to where they said, you're going to have a vote. That's the power that you have. The power that you have was represented just yesterday. You had that guy making that big bold stance on the life issue. I'm not going to vote for this because it doesn't protect life. And then you saw him fold like a cheap suit. And Bart Stupak said, I am going to get out to spend more time with my family. And when politicians talk about spending more time with their family, it's not, they know they're just about to, because the electorate is not going to send them back again. And God bless us for that. And for Bart Stupak to hide behind that deal of an executive order up against the legislation he knew would trump it. I know Bart Stupak. I sat at the prayer breakfast with him every Thursday. I know him, and I know that he compromises values because he does not believe in what he voted on. That's the arm twisting that's going on, and I will tell you that they're just now going to ramp up the process for cap and trade. They're going to ramp the process up for new rules among banks, where banks can't survive, where they can't loan money. We are going to bleed to death in this country economically if we do not make a stand at this point. It will not be an easy stand, because you're hearing the testimony of Diane that they're going to cheat at the polls. We know they're going to cheat at the polls. And we're going to have to be ever vigilant, but our founding fathers told us we were going to have to be ever vigilant. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And yet we have not been. We are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, but we have forgotten by the people. You and I began to send people to Santa Fe and to Washington, and we did not watch what they were doing, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else till I went. And I began to see what was happening. I began to say, no, this is wrong, it's not right. Now then, the people that we're fighting as a minority are in charge in the country, and they're telling us it should bring just as much money to sit at home and not work is to go out and work in the sweat. There is never a future for a country that begins to do that. We're dying for jobs, and yet our own government is killing jobs. In this state, the pit rule, if it were reversed, there would be enough oil and gas jobs, enough gross receipts taxes that we would not have had to have one single tax increase. You think it doesn't matter to us? That $150 million is coming off the streets of your businesses here. but it could have been provided by those jobs in northwest New Mexico and southeast New Mexico. And yet we don't say a word. We don't say a word when they began to choke off our timber industry. They did that in the 70s for the spotted owl, and we didn't speak up. 20,000 New Mexico jobs went away. 27,000 jobs out in the San Joaquin Valley went away over a silvery minnow. We can keep the minnow alive in a swimming pool and put it in the river, but we need the jobs in America. We need those offshore platforms, and let me take just a second and tell you about exactly what happened on that presidential order that we're going to create offshore drilling. Take a look with me if you imagine this map of the United States. President Bush in 2008 opened the entire west coast to offshore drilling. He had opened the entire east coast. We'd already been drilling down here off Texas and Louisiana. Around Florida, there was a zone that we couldn't drill except 125 miles. Up in Alaska, we could drill around Alaska. And so when the President of the United States, Mr. Obama, announced that he's going to open the offshore areas to drilling, what he really did was completely exclude the entire West Coast. He excluded everything north of Virginia. He locked that up. What he did is open a little bitty spot here in Virginia about that big. Except there was already a lease sale scheduled for that in 2011. He said, we're going to start that over, so it means now it's delayed for 3 or 4 more years. Everything south of Virginia down to the tip of the top edge of Florida, he said we're going to study until 2022. Around Florida, he said, we might drill there if the U.S. Congress approves it. The U.S. Congress under Nancy Pelosi fought every single effort we made to create offshore drilling, and so when that man standing in the Oval Office said publicly that I'm going to open the offshore areas to drilling, he was absolutely lying, and I will say it on the House floor if we have to, Joe Wilson. And this is what Massachusetts was about. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's about people saying we are tired of the people in Washington telling things that are not true and telling us they are true. People are tired of the government growing beyond its bounds. They're tired of us taking the future and mortgaging it for today, and they want to see jobs. Germany, USSR, all those countries didn't have jobs because the size of the government grows too much. There's an economic truth that about 24 or 25%, the government spending is 24 or 25% of the economy or above, then you get stagnation. Anything below, you get growth, you get vitality. When we gave the tax cuts of 2003, we went from about 2% rate of growth to 8.5% in 1 month. Instead of that stimulus $1 trillion spending, what we should have done is cut your taxes, sent the money back here, and you would have begun to stimulate your local economy by buying shoes for your kids and by paying for your insurance policies and a new car. That's what stimulates the economy, not the spending of these government projects. So my friends, we are at a time when we must fight for the country or we're going to lose the country. These people that are in charge right now have no love for the values that you and I have. I'm willing to go there and fight. But my friends, I need you to fight on the main streets here. We cannot do it there. It must begin here, and all we can do is be a reflection there. So begin to talk to your friends and neighbors. Begin to talk to your clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary, whatever clubs. You must begin to talk about these conservative values that we all got so quiet about for the last 40 years. This is a Lincoln Day dinner. President Lincoln stood by himself against a country they did not want to cure slavery. It was too difficult. It was too hard. President Lincoln stood against his own cabinet, and he stood against his own generals. He began to read books at night because his generals would not fight the war, and so he was really running the war from the Oval Office, saying, I want these troops here, because he didn't have a general that he could put in charge that really wanted to fight with friends from the service academies. He fought against his cabinet, he fought against the generals, and he fought against the country. The North wanted out of the war, and the South wanted out of the war. Because of one man, we changed this world. We freed the slaves, and we kept the Union together. I believe sincerely that God raises up individuals of every generation who will lead the country. And I don't know if it would be you or if it would be me, but if we're not out there leading in the field that we can lead in, then we will never be chosen. So I'm asking you to be leaders wherever you are. Sprout where you're planted and begin to lead, because this nation is dying for leadership. God bless you. Thanks for being out here.